So many worlds. Wow. So let's just relax through our breath. We're going to close our eyes and fall into love. Come home to your heart, to the one I am, and know it as yourself, your true nature. This awake awareness is pulsating with life and available to fuel all of reality. Reality. It's fueling everything. Life arising and overflowing and showing up as creation, showing up as the one I am. And so we are here in love, knowing it as home, coming home. And in this homecoming, we find ourselves. And today, in this connection with each other, we will find out who we are and reclaim that as our true nature. And from that place, we will recreate reality. We will create a new heaven and a new earth. And so it is.
Now we're just going to go into 5 minutes of meditation, and then Pali will give a Dharma talk, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. So let's just do 5 minutes of silent meditation now.
It's such a joy to relax into that arising, overflowing true nature. We, all of us who are in this room have, well, I often say we had a date. We're all here together because of a shared possibility, a shared movement toward our true nature, toward life, toward love, toward our hearts. And there's a turning that has to occur in order to open up into what's already always true. It's already always been there with us as who we are, the one I am. It's been such a literal kind of pointing, like in the Old Testament when I think it was Moses or Abraham, one of the old guys, who in front of the burning bush said, "Who is this? Who are you?" And the burning bush said, "I am that I am." It couldn't be more literal than that, right? But we keep saying, "Oh, it's about him. He's the I am. He's the I am." What is it saying? I am. I am. Yeah, so today what I want to do, I want us to do together is to understand that the way that our reality arises is not for or against us. It's in cohesion. It's in the consequence of our identity. Our reality is in the identity, the I of the beholder. I'm sure that most of you in this room today and on our Zoom time together have had teachings or had groups or experiences where we talk about a kind of statement that seems a little crass to me, but is accurately pointing to you create your own reality, right? I can remember when I first heard that and I thought, oh my God, I'm in trouble here. If I'm doing this, I got a problem. Houston, we got a problem. And so, but the understanding of that that information received by the ego gets so distorted through the filter of that identity, that ego identity. And of course, it is another kind of notch that we hang on to and then blame ourselves one more time. So at the heart of the matter of who you have experienced yourself to be in this incarnation, in this incarnating, amazing 3D polarized reality, at the heart of that is the installation, the conclusion of what is very widespread label for all of us, and it's been around for a long time, called the childhood wound. So what in the way that I hold and teach that is that conclusion created a lens that has then created a distortion field, and that conclusion, and we can just use one that's really common, or at least one facet for most of us, I'm not good enough. That conclusion creates, because the power of who we are, consciousness creates. Consciousness is cause in the matter. So this consciousness that I think of as attached or resonant or consonant with this body-mind unit has the distortion field of I'm not good enough. So it's game on at that point, right? And so what can come up and show up for us, what can be projected by us is through that lens, that distortion field. And so then we tell ourselves that we create our own reality, right? It's like, yikes, what do I do with that? But it's not about blame. It's not about even attribution. It's about understanding the nature of reality. It's actually about understanding the power of the one I am. For each of us, the one I am. So this morning, on the days when I do groups, which are 3 days in a row in the middle of the week, I just sit for a bit to see if I can tune in to how we're going to be together, because together we can have an enlightened possibility, a coherence within the group consciously to look at something. So when I sit before I do groups, I just sit to see what occurs to me that's coming from the ones that will be participating. I may have gotten it wrong today. So. We don't know yet. But the thing that came to me as the title for this little session, this little Dharma talk, was "You First." And the opening of that concept was like, instead of any of us, the you in this talk title, expecting an apparent other to give you love, to give you understanding, to get you. How many women tell me every week, he just doesn't get me? Right. So when we project that out there, what we've done is that we haven't addressed it at the place where it can actually make a difference. And that's you first. You come home to yourself. You come home and know yourself as not good or bad, but as the source of realities. This is not a polarized identity that we are. We're not. Our minds have created polarity in the projection of the external reality. And so we believe that it's kind of endemic or inherent to everything. It's not. I am is one, and we are that. I am that. So when the mind creates any response reaction, especially to an apparent other, and believes that they can behave differently to oneself, to one here, right? They need to understand, they need to listen to what I say. They need to understand how I want to be touched, how I want to be treated, how I want to be connected to. And that one that's turned toward that apparent other in the need to get that across has turned away from herself. And she is the one that this one is waiting for. We're not waiting for the knight in shining armor to show up, or the really great, intelligent, sensitive guy or gal to show up. We're waiting for ourselves to come home. And we've turned away from ourselves. And as we've turned away from ourselves, we've been magnetized into an external reality with the idea that whatever we're needing, we can get it from out there. Out there is a projection of in here. There ain't no out there. It's all here. The good news about that is you have total access to it. All of us have understood some of, maybe all of what I'm saying. But our excuses for not coming home and being present, true north on our own behalf, are how many incarnations we've had when we've been victimized, when we've been neglected, when we've been left out, when we've been pariah, when we've been a victim. And we believe, but the thing is that that doesn't exist except in our mind now, calling it forth and using it as an excuse to keep caught up in a reality that's a projection of everything that we don't want. Am I making sense to everybody?
Yes.
How about on my screen here? Yeah, what are they saying?
Most people aren't
Responding?
They're not.
I'm gonna have to slap them around.
Their videos are off, most people,
Okay.
except for Faith and
Okay.
and Amora. Our videos are on.
So the opportunity is in if you can, if you're willing to stay with that model of the issue, the problem, the core, the heart of the suffering, then the work that you do is the beautiful work of coming home to yourself, of including yourself. It's like a turning, because what we've created is a sense of a self that is an ego based in our early conclusion. In this example, we're using, I'm not good enough, right? So this one that we're identifying with, who's been caught up in that imprinting, that conclusion, can't have a different world. Now, just to make it interesting, whoever this was who thought of this insane, crazy thing like polarity, just to make it interesting, we may, even with the identity of I'm not good enough, create an experience where we're getting, in quotes, getting everything we want. We got the hypersensitive guy who's always on time and is in response to everything we want and need. We got him. We got the big bank account. We've got the car. We've got the jet-setting lifestyle where we get to do our work. We get to contribute. We get to be important. So all of that can happen, but it's at one end of the stick of the polarity. The other end of the stick of the polarity is the failure, the suffering, the self-abnegation, all of what we don't want. Now that's a polarity. You pick up that stick, you got both ends. One of the things all of us in here have probably experienced, because everybody in here has had different levels and kinds of what this world calls success, which I could argue about that too. But all of us in here have had the fulfillment of that end of the stick, right? The right guy, gal, the good money, life on Maui half the year. And at the other end of the stick, the depression, I'm not good enough, and all that entails, right? But they're the same frequency. It's a polarity. And that's what I think of as the cosmic joke. Yeah, it's like, so even when we're at the good end of the stick, the undercurrent in our emotional, psychological, inner experience is the fear that we'll lose it. When we're at the good end, at the bad end of the stick, we're just going for the good end of the stick. So we're still on that polarity. Right? At the apex of this implied triangle, the baseline is that polarity. At the apex, meta to that polarity is presence, is true nature, is awake awareness, is the presence, the fullness, the opening, the connection, the fun, flowers, fun, all my favorite F words, freedom, all of that is above the polarity. What we call the fall was the story of falling into that polarity, falling out of our hearts and into our minds, where the polarity and language were propagated. So the possibility is when you are triggered, and this is the tool that we use in my groups called the 6 Steps to Freedom, and you can find it on YouTube. When you're triggered, you're believing something about yourself that's not true. You're believing you're being reactive out of your wounded conclusion. In this case, I'm not good enough. And so somebody comes and somebody would walk in the door right now and they would have gifts for everybody but me. I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I was the one that was left out. This is the story of my life. So when you're triggered, like something happens because the early wounding was installed and creates what I call the distortion field. So everything in it is going to be up for, it can show up anyway. And this is, again, sometimes the confusion. It can show up like you're the most important thing ever. And then it shows up as, you didn't get one, whatever it was that was being given out. So we get caught there. The opportunity when we're triggered is to use it to find out the specific early childhood wound that got installed and is creating the distortion field. And out of that experience, the identity of the one who is not good enough and all that distortion field, that identity cannot be on her own side. What happens when that conclusion is reached, and often it can be prenatal, it can be in the first 5 years, it can be when you're 4, 5, 6 years old or later. When that conclusion was reached, then and got installed, now everything is seen through that lens. And so now what you're doing is you are adapting through your astrology, your human design, whatever you have as talents, gifts, in your avatar, right? I call it your owner's manual. It's like your human design. And so now that one is magnetized toward the external, where the conclusion here is I'm not good enough, and it has to interact to try to experience being good enough. And authenticity flies out the window. So this is kind of a kindergarten picture of what we all go through and how we set up what we think of as a life full of problems and issues and things that we need to correct, that we need to address. This is where I always remind all of you of the book I'm never going to write, the title of which will be, What If Nothing's Wrong?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that the nothing's wrong is back. It's like, I think it was in the Monday group, or the Tuesday group, I was talking about Nisargadatta has an instruction where he says, get back. I think even Michael, who is the Untethered Soul, Michael Singer. He talks about get back. The reason is because from back there, everything is seen as a rising, right? From back there, you know yourself, this body-mind unit, as an aspect of the creation. And you know in that dynamic perspective that what you are is awake awareness. You are awake awareness having the experience of the limitation that's been created in this 3D reality. The idea of being on your own side, the idea of making the fundamental shift that comes at the heart of the matter. And the heart of the matter was the conclusion of a child, unavoidable conclusion of a child, right? It incarnated into a reality that's based in 3-dimensionality, projected reality, and it carries the frequency of fear. So now we're navigating out there. When I say that you have to show up first for yourself in order to make a difference in the out there. When you make the difference in here, the out there loses its power to get your attention and to be priority number one. When in here is filled with the turning that comes when we have had our attention particles magnetized into the external reality, looking like other people who are not commenting on our post, looking like situations that are difficult and that keep us on the phone waiting for somebody in India to tell us that they can't help us for hours. Like, what kind of reality is this? But as we turn away from this external and come home to our true nature, and we say, I am here for you, what we find is that inner child, that we as awake awareness are the ones that he's waiting for. When you come home to yourself in that way, that's the wake up. And from that place, you're simply doing what's in front of you to do, but you're no longer magnetized into conditions that feel like they're difficult, that feel like they're against you. So you come home to yourself and you be on your own behalf. It's your job, right? There isn't anybody who's had enough, however many lifetimes, experience in the external and enough being a victim to not have this be true for them. There are no exceptions. There is no universal exception, even though I know there's some of you in here who think you are. No, we're all that. We're all that. We're all the awareness. We're all the consciousness in which realities arise. And when we know ourselves as that, we will laugh at the fear-based ego. We will try not to snicker and be disrespectful of him or her, but they're now unemployed. They're now off duty, and I am here. I am here now. I know who I am. I am not this body-mind unit. I am the awake awareness in which realities arise, and the realities that arise there depend on the frequency of the lens of my own self-regard. That's the way it works. All of you knew that already, right? So we can look together at ways in which we come home to be on our own behalf. There certainly is both a direction and a practice. Part of the practice has to do with starting to be on your own side. When I was explaining a minute ago that when we concluded I'm not good enough, and we were magnetized toward the external, which was reflecting that back to us, then we began to create all kinds of adaptive behaviors, and our attention particles were magnetized in the external. And now we're trying to be good enough. Or maybe we're hiding, or maybe we're just showing up and waiting to see what we can do to get some kind of attention, to be given some kind of reality, to know that we are here now. Because when our attention particles are out there, they can only reflect back to us the distortion lens that our conclusion has put into place. If in the beginning was the word that is the logos, which we know is the point of a frequency vibration out of which this reality emerged or arose, right? The language of our I am not good enough, our label on ourselves, is that powerful in creating our world. We can't be cavalier or dismissive about it. We can't let the thinking mind, which we can observe, have its way, its limited fear-based way, with what in fact creates our reality. That's what we've been doing for more than one lifetime. This lifetime, there's an agreement going on somehow. Maybe it's about technology. Maybe it's about all of us agreeing to incarnate at this time to support each other in this amazing recreation of reality. But it's up to each one of us. It's such an amazing thing to realize that you can do it for the world. Because when you do it for yourself, you create a new reality, a new heaven and a new earth. All of you have had enough experience in having shifts in consciousness and then having your world change. You wouldn't be here probably if that hadn't occurred for you many times. I can remember one time I had what I call a karmic debt of living in Wichita, Kansas for 14 years. It didn't seem right to me. I was like, oh my God, I'm still here. Right? But during that time, I had a particular shift in consciousness, like all of us have had. And my idea about myself and my world shifted enough. And I literally couldn't find the bar that I'd been hanging out in for the last 5 years. It was like it kind of disappeared. Have you all had anything like that? Like you can't find that person that used to be your drinking buddy or your fuck buddy or your whatever, right? It's because there's no longer the one version of you who had that. And so that world disappears. So that was an amazing shift, and the reality for this body mind unit.
I'm thinking the witch from Wichita.
Da, 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 da. Yeah, we love the Wizard of Oz in Kansas. The Wizard of Oz was a film was made the year I was born, 1939, and so was Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
Whatever that means, I don't know. So if there's anybody in here who wants to take a look or who wants to have me field a question or a topic, the floor is open now. And if there isn't any discussion that's needed or wanted, we can go into meditation early, or we can sit quietly together.
I could ask something.
Please, who's that?
Oh, my name is Lynn.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi. I'm so really resonating with what you're saying about that apex, or however you said it, this polarity between life is good and I have what I need and when it's not. And there's two areas that I'm noticing, and one that has been with me a lot of my life, which focuses almost entirely on my intimate partner.
Yeah.
It just comes and just grabs me. And, I stayed in one marriage 27 years and then worked on that constantly. Oh my God. I mean, before that, I was in a transformational journey. It's the journey itself has helped me a lot. There's a lot of what you're saying that's in me. But when this grabs me, when I'm grabbed, I had one yesterday with my partner, and it isn't that unusual, and I just am taken. And so there's this, a week ago, I remembered I had just learned your 6 steps, and I love the 6th step. And I was like, okay, what is the belief? It's like, I can't be met or something, or I'm not meetable, and I had a shift then. But if I don't go down deep enough, yesterday I was really taken, and I ended up meeting a friend who I said, I don't know if this is me, right? And she goes, it's you. It's you're the thing. And it was a good friend, and she just did that. but I know, Polly, I'm not out of the water. And so I ended up being able to come back to him and take responsibility. But I don't know what part this is old trauma, this is lifetime. It just, I'm humbled
Mhm.
by what I go through.
Mhm. It's very powerful. We're powerful creators.
Mm,
And when we've installed something that creates a reality, it's compelling.
yes.
I mean, we are good at it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. In the 6 steps, each one of them has a potency of its own. Well, the first one is like, I'm triggered, I'm reactive. That's the opening. The second one is the acknowledgement that this experience is about me. Because that brings you to the third one, which is to name the feeling that I am having. This is a powerful opening, actually. It seems a little simplistic, but it's a powerful opening. And so naming that feeling to the degree that we can, and sometimes and often, that feeling will bloom as we get triggered again, and it comes back to the same feeling. As we get triggered again, and it comes that feeling will bloom in us as something that's been. I don't want to compare it to a flower. It's more like a cancer, right? It's that feeling is just embodied. It's gotten embodied in us, yeah. And so at the fourth step is, when did I feel that feeling? Like the first time I can remember, to use the feeling to evoke, to go into, because the feeling is like a line. It's just like a lifeline or an umbilical cord right into a memory. Because it's out of that early experience that this trigger and the feeling that comes with it was created. And does that make sense to you, Lynn?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I visited this place, and the feeling is like incredible powerlessness,
Right.
and anger. And then it's got stories to build on that. And I did track it back. And that's where I was like, it's not exactly I'm not good at, it's like just finding that core. And when it happened a few weeks ago or so, it was very powerful. I didn't do it yesterday. I mean, that's the thing. I didn't do the tracking. I just was attached. So I think I'm glad I'm here to just keep, it's like, I'm wanting to be reminded by this moment. And if I go there, it seems sometimes like it's very fast too. So sometimes the trigger is so fast when he does X.
Right.
How could he do that? It's just like,
right.
So can I do it is it even okay to do it quickly?
Yeah. You're right. The memory that you feel caught, reactive, triggered, then that's the key. If you don't have the time, space, or the availability of working the 6 steps at that point, you can, it's what I call a reality check. You can mentally note, I know what that is. I know I'm triggered. That alone will start to give you more. It's like that alone starts to help you reclaim your attention particles from the external that look like cause, looking like him, and bringing them back to yourself, so you're ready to continue, because this is the stairway to heaven, actually. And it feels like it feels like it's being done to you. And the conclusion, anger, by the way, for everybody, is a secondary emotion. So it's not going to be the one that gets you to the wound, but it's often a part of it. Your feeling of unbelievable powerlessness is probably at the heart of the matter for you, right? That gets brought up when you're triggered like this. Yeah.
It's that. And then I've layered on it sometimes how many times I've tried. And I have this whole thing, like, I've tried to show you, it's just, that's why I call it, I'm in the grip, because I'm like not in the grip right now.
Right.
But in the grip, just even going, okay, this is my trigger. I am triggered right now. That's just, even that can start this remembering this.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If the feeling of powerlessness evokes an early memory, then to go into that and to see what was happening and to experience that child's experience when she concluded out of that experience that she was powerless, right? Because that's the knot, that powerlessness, and there may have other pieces to it, but that powerlessness was the conclusion when something happened. And that memory, even, I often say to people, I don't even care if it's your memory. It may have been on a TV show or something, but it was on the Wizard of Oz. It was the Wicked Witch. But that powerlessness got installed, and it's created the distortion fields for you. So it's like really getting into that event and the experience and the conclusion of powerlessness. And let me ask you, and this is a free association question. What's true about a person who's powerless? They must be what?
Weak.
Weak, yeah. Anything else come up?
It's more of it like a sensation of almost like disappearing and just dark and kind of, it feels almost in this moment, right this second, a little bit like being in the womb. I don't know that that's the memory, but it's very, and it's helpless, and the person is, nothing.
It's not, that's right. You don't exist, right? A person that's powerless has no impact, has no way to impact anything. And it leads to a sense of not even existing.
Yeah. And certainly the trying to make a difference, the powerlessness, because what doesn't even matter.
Right.
And so there's no mattering. And this can also get triggered, like you were saying earlier, if I'm in a group. So much of the time this doesn't happen, but sometimes it happens. They're like, they didn't really like what I said. I didn't have any impact. Nobody
right. That's it.
Nobody heard me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a facet of the same wound.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, having no impact, you can see it's powerlessness. It's a sense of that. Yeah. So let me ask you this question. Who is reporting this to me?
Right this moment?
Yeah.
Uh
Who can see the story?
oh,
Who can see the trigger? Who can get in touch with the conclusion?
I'm gonna say I'm here reporting it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a mixture of the consciousness you're referring to earlier, like full on just presence.
Right.
So let's just say enough confidence to raise my hand and speak to you, and not really worried about my impact. Just I'm right here,
And that I am is that's the I am that is present. That awareness is your true nature, and it's present all the time to register the lack of existence, to register the powerlessness, right? Your true nature is, and now it's shining on that conclusion, on that event, on that little girl that was created in that moment, right? And that experience of powerlessness. You have to lift, it's like we reach out our arms and recollect our attention particles from what we have created and then projected into an external reality. And we come home to ourselves and we're true north, right here, right now. And then it's like to the world, to the partner, show me what you got. Yeah, it's just like because you're now seated, you're present, true north, in what is your nature, your power, your beingness, right? It's unassailable. It's present. It's like, and then you begin to have the fun of this body-mind unit.
I'm really appreciating this because it feels like as I'm here with you and we're here, this energy can kind of communicate when it happens that I can feel her, and that,
yes,
and you're nothing but I need, and it's absolutely, and they can kind of just start to coexist so that place isn't been exiled off to this other powerless place where I'm even like
That's right.
not present at all. So of course the powerlessness is like actually kind of accurate in that moment, isn't it?
It is, yes. But now you, as awareness, are the one she's been waiting for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what she would do priorly, and whatever your adaptive behavior was to turn external and try to get an ally, or to try to take a self-help course or whatever, right? Try to bolster up the sense of powerlessness. And then, but now you know, when you, as we, you know, whether it's internal family systems or childhood wound stuff, whatever, the reaction, there is an aspect energetically of the one that's available. I should say this differently. There's an aspect energetically of the wounded one, and she's been waiting for you as awareness. You are the one she's waiting for. It's not the partner, and it's not the community or the whatever else you attributed your attachment, which could give you a sense of power. It's none of that. It's you. I am present now. This is what's true for every one of us. And this is the awakening, to know yourself as that. And you have had, and you will continue to the degree that it's still working in there, to experience limitation, to experience difficulty, apparent difficulty in the external, until you are fully present and knowing yourself as the one I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good work.
You mentioned it. Thank you. I'm actually trained in IFS too, so I know that material, but it doesn't necessarily always, it's like I'm still learning this. And so I'm just appreciating the humility of being there and also being able to be reminded here of this. So
Yes.
so much.
Yeah. And it's a wonderful thing to, you know, it sounds simplistic in a certain sense, but it's accurate energetically. And that is the source, the cause, the program that was installed with our wound has created this distortion field. And this work to come home to yourself, you know. And we get triggered to remind us of what we haven't given ourselves, who we haven't been for ourselves. And because when that's coherent, when that's present, when we're back here, it's like there is no separation, because what falls away in the awakening is all self-judgment.
Mhm.
And without self-judgment, there isn't any judgment.
Mhm.
If you don't have self-judgment, that lens is gone, and you feel just simply connected in appropriate proximity, right? To the group, to the friend, to the lover, to the whatever. That there's no longer a separation. And the ease with which we authentically and appropriately interact is natural. It's our natural awake.
Can I ask you a question about this before? I just one last question here.
Sure.
So it's all resonating. And then what comes up sometimes when I'm particularly with my intimate partner and sometimes other people is this longing, like you were saying, my energy goes out, I think, to connect with him, and he'll be disconnected or whatever. That's where it starts.
Yeah.
So I think it's just reclaiming, even though that connection maybe isn't happening there, it still is pouring out. It still can flow through me, whoever I'm with. It doesn't have to be they bring it, he shows it. It's really just that, like you said, that natural flow. That's where I'm practicing, I think, right now. That's
Right.
my practice right now.
And the opportunity with that practice is to notice when it feels other than the flow.
Okay.
And to remind yourself that that impediment to that experience of the flow has to do with your self-limiting judgment.
Yeah, that's right.
It doesn't mean that if he's of a certain nature or a certain frequency at a particular time that you want to connect with him. You might not. I mean, it doesn't. Authenticity is what we use to calibrate the way we're moving, you're right. If I can't say what's true for me regarding anything, then I am caught in a frequency of the early self-judgment, the fear, or the limitation, the powerlessness. So it's at least to let ourselves know. And when we can, when we move into the courage that you have had today, then we get to say what's true for us. And the more that we do that, you can feel it, you can imagine it, you can image it. That child that was thrown under the bus is now sitting up straight, looking for what's next. Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sweetie. Where are we?
We have 7 more minutes. I have something,
Please.
because I'm just thinking about what Lynn said, and Yara and I are going through something where we're letting ourselves trigger each other more than usual.
You're letting that happen.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you witnessed it today, setting up or coming from the car, and it's like Lynn saying, so quick. It's so like quick. And I was successful on the way to pick you up with the trigger. I was successful by saying, oh, I'm in relationship to my wound. First of all, I thought Yara was having her wound. First thought.
Of course.
Pretty
So it's good to
clear.
be reminded of it.
It's like, oh, I'm in relationship to her wound, right? That was the first iteration. And then the second iteration was, oh, okay, I'm triggered. But somehow just saying I'm in relation to my wound, it does something really great. It just stops it. Like it stops the whole story.
Well, it puts it right where it's true. It puts it where it was created, where you have access. And that's why it feels coherent that way. That's why it feels, yeah, that's very powerful to realize that when you're triggered, you're in relationship to your woundedness.
Right. And the thing we were talking about yesterday was being authentic is not about my relationship, not being authentic to someone else. It's being authentic to myself,
Right.
to my wound, in relation to my wound.
Right. Tell yourself the truth.
And that is an interesting piece of work.
Yes. Do I make it sound too easy? It's we're so created by what we're looking at that we want to dispel. Right? We've created, I mean, decades. I don't know. I had created 7 decades before the shift occurred, and it just wasn't a person anymore.
But it is so compelling to believe there is an other out there that is, messing up.
That's right. That's right. Well, that was the imprinting, the conditioning of the child that happened. Something real happened to the child. And that's why we have to be so kind to ourselves, because when you were, in your family, you could have been left at home and not even remembered until they were already at Disney World, right?
Yeah.
Because there were so many kids. Yeah. So, but
Yeah.
when something real happened to the child, and our energy field makes an unavoidable connection to that means something about me. And then it's game on, because now everything is going to look to that little child as if I'm not included. I don't matter. I got left again. And that experience just starts to build up. And now you start to be aware of how to inauthentically influence the external reality so that you don't suffer with it. So if daddy comes home drunk and beats mommy, and you learn that you can show him your newest piano assignment, or you can dance, or you can sing, or you can sit on his lap. Now we're going down a different dark place, but the whole thing is we began to try to deal with and modify the external to avoid experiencing I'm powerless, or I'm not, I don't matter, I'm left out. So that's why it's so important to be kind to ourselves about this.
So I think that I'm gonna start saying that next thing, like, okay, I'm in relationship to my wound, there's something I don't want to feel here.
Perfect.
What is that? What am I avoiding feeling here? Because that pop out is just so big.
Is there time for?
Yeah, go ahead, there's a few
Okay, I'll
minutes.
make it kind of quick, but I realized as you were talking that powerless to me, actually a relief comes.
Wow.
Powerless means I don't have to make a decision. Or I'm not responsible for having something, and I realized, I don't know if there's ever a time I didn't think I wasn't powerful. It's that my protective personality creates that, so I don't have to show up. Because what if I make the wrong decision or write the wrong stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a kind of a turn, a kind of an inversion. But I think that your awareness of it is really powerful.
It came right now as I was listening to you. How was this feeling? And
Yeah.
it's relief, just kind of like relaxing. And I thought, okay, this is a gift. It's something really important, and I know it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good to have that distinction. One of the things we'll tend to do is in an inversion like that, we'll simply be on automatic with it. But one of as all adaptive identities and behaviors fall away, we find ourselves so present, so not just allowing, but inviting what's happening in whatever way. Is that the idea of powerlessness or powerful, it falls away. All of the polarities fall away in our true nature.
And I've experienced that in times where I emptied my mind and just leaned forward and just talk from my heart.
Exactly.
And that isn't as scary one, and I hope it. I go there every time. I practice it because that's a good place to be. So.
Yeah, there's nobody at risk in authenticity. And that's why it feels so good.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We're at the bottom of the hour here. We're going to shift into meditation. You're welcome to stay. You're welcome to leave as you like. We're going to do 45 minutes of silent meditation. If you're staying here, make yourself at home. You're welcome to sit, lay down, whatever you like. We're going to stop the recording here.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Polly. This is